The eviction notice was still taped to the front door when Ethan Cole returned. Not to beg, not to fight, but to remind the world of what it had done to him. The paper had faded under years of sun and rain, the ink barely legible, but Ethan didn't need to read it again. He remembered every word. He remembered the day it was nailed there like a final verdict on his life. He remembered the neighbors watching through half-closed blinds. He remembered his little daughter gripping his hand, asking in a trembling voice if they still had a home. And he remembered the moment something inside him broke. Before we go further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that prove people can rise from nothing, take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Real Single Dad Life. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Years earlier, Ethan had been just another hardworking man in Chicago. He wasn't rich and he wasn't powerful, but he had something better. He had purpose. Every morning he woke up before sunrise, packed a lunch for his daughter, Ava, and left for his job at a small auto repair shop on the south side of the city. The work was tough, the pay was modest, but he was proud of every dollar he earned. Ava was 8 years old then, with messy brown hair she refused to brush and a laugh that could melt the hardest days into something soft. She was Ethan's entire world. Her mother had left years before, choosing a different life in another state, leaving Ethan to raise Ava alone. It wasn't easy, but he never complained. To him, Ava wasn't a burden. She was the reason he kept going. Their apartment was small, with peeling paint and a leaky faucet that never quite stopped dripping, but it was filled with warmth. Movie nights on the couch, pancakes on Sunday mornings, and bedtime stories that always ended with Ava falling asleep halfway through. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs. Then everything changed. The shop Ethan worked for was bought out by a large corporate chain owned by a man named Victor Langford. Victor was known for one thing: cutting costs. Within weeks, longtime employees were laid off, wages were reduced, and the shop's atmosphere turned cold and mechanical. Ethan tried to hold on, tried to prove his worth, but it didn't matter. To Victor, he was just a number on a spreadsheet. One afternoon, Ethan was called into the office and told his position was no longer needed. Just like that. No warning, no severance, no second chance. Losing his job was only the beginning. Without steady income, the bills started piling up. Rent became harder to pay. Ethan picked up odd jobs, working late nights fixing cars in back alleys, doing anything he could to keep food on the table. But it wasn't enough. The landlord, under pressure from the same corporate investors backing Victor's company, refused to show any leniency. The day the eviction notice came, Ethan felt something shift deep inside him. Not anger at first, not even sadness, just a heavy, suffocating silence. He packed what little they had into a few boxes while Ava sat quietly on the floor, holding her favorite stuffed animal. She didn't cry. That somehow made it worse. They spent weeks moving from one temporary place to another. Cheap motels, a friend's couch, even nights in the car when there was nowhere else to go. Ethan tried to shield Ava from the worst of it, turning it into an adventure, pretending it was all temporary. But children understand more than adults think. One night, as they sat in the backseat of their old sedan, Ava looked at him and asked if they had done something wrong. That question haunted Ethan for years. That was the moment he made a promise. Not out loud, not for anyone else to hear, but deep inside where it mattered most. He would never let this happen again. The years that followed were the hardest of his life, but also the most transformative. Ethan didn't give up. He couldn't, for Ava. He took every opportunity he could find, learning new skills, studying late into the night after Ava fell asleep. He saved every dollar, no matter how small. He worked in garages, construction sites, even took online courses in business and automotive technology. Slowly, painfully, things began to change. A small breakthrough came when he started his own mobile repair service. At first, it was just him, a toolbox, and a beat-up van. But he was good, really good. Word spread. Customers trusted him. They recommended him to others. What began as survival turned into something more. Years passed. Ava grew older, stronger, more resilient. She never forgot those nights in the car, but instead of breaking her, they shaped her. She became determined, focused, and incredibly kind. She saw her father not as someone who had failed, but as someone who had fought. By the time she was 16, Ethan's business had grown into a full-fledged company, multiple locations, dozens of employees, a reputation built on honesty and hard work. And one day, an opportunity appeared that felt almost unreal. Victor Langford's company was struggling. Bad investments, poor management, and a growing number of lawsuits had brought it to the brink of collapse. The same empire that had once crushed Ethan was now desperate. Ethan saw the opening. But this wasn't about revenge in the way people expected. He didn't want to destroy Victor. He didn't want to humiliate him. He wanted something deeper. Closure. The day Ethan walked into Victor's office, years after being fired, the roles had completely reversed. Victor looked older, worn down by stress and failure. He didn't recognize Ethan at first. But when he did, the silence that followed was heavy. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't show anger. He simply stood there, calm and steady, carrying years of pain that had been reshaped into strength. He offered to buy the company. Not to tear it apart, but to rebuild it. Victor had no choice. The deal was finalized within weeks. For the first time in years, Ethan returned to the very place where his life had once fallen apart. But this time, he wasn't an employee. He was the owner. And what he did next surprised everyone. He rehired former workers who had been unfairly let go. He restored wages. He created policies to protect employees from the kind of treatment he had once endured. He turned the company into something completely different. Something better. That was his revenge. Not destruction. Transformation. But the most powerful moment came on a quiet afternoon. Ethan drove back to that old apartment building, the same one with the faded eviction notice. It had been renovated now, the walls repainted, the broken windows replaced, but he could still see echoes of the past. Ava stood beside him, now a young woman with confidence in her eyes. They didn't say much. They didn't need to. Because everything they had lost had led them here. Before we reach the end of this story, if this journey has touched your heart even a little, take a moment to like, comment, and share. Stories like this remind us what resilience truly looks like. And here's something special I'd love to ask you. Comment the word rise if you believe no one should ever be defined by their lowest moment. Ethan didn't become a hero overnight. He didn't erase the past, but he proved something powerful. That losing everything doesn't mean losing yourself. That the world can take your job, your home, your stability, but it can't take your will to rebuild unless you let it. And most importantly, he showed his daughter that kindness doesn't make you weak. It makes you unstoppable. Because in the end, the greatest revenge isn't hurting those who hurt you. It's becoming someone they could never break. And if this story stayed with you, if it made you feel something real, don't forget to engage with the video. Your support keeps these stories alive, and there are so many more waiting to be told.